I jumped the gun.
That you did.
Okay, thank you everyone for attending the November 20th Veterans Advisory Commission meeting. I think we're off to a good start. Last time I had the date wrong, so at least I know it's the 20th. And with that, we'll move to the next slide, please. Vice Chair, are you still able to lead us in the pledge?
Yes, absolutely. As part of the safe acknowledgement, saluting our armed forces everywhere, we're going to ask everybody in the room to please stand if you have served in the military of the United States. Taking this moment to thank you all for your service and your continued service by attending meetings like this in Raleigh County. And we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And we'll move on to the next agenda item, the Commissioner roll call.
Commissioner Crooks,
Present.
Commissioner Palmero,
Present.
Commissioner McFadden, Commissioner Jackson Kelly, Chair Allman,
Present.
Commissioner Fulmer,
Present.
Commissioner Noyola,
Present.
Commissioner Zato,
Present.
Commissioner Gutierrez, Commissioner Chavez.
Present.
Okay. Chair, you have a quorum.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. We'll move to the next agenda item, please. The minutes package should be in your, oh, Commissioner, are you ready?
Okay, you Crooks Commissioner, First District. I move that we accept the minutes as published, subject to any errors being corrected.
Okay, we have a motion.
I
we have
move. I move.
Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
Commissioner Palmero seconds. Stephanie, can we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Crooks,
Accept.
Commissioner Palmero,
Accept.
Commissioner Zato,
Abstain.
Chair Allman,
Approve.
Commissioner Noyola,
Approve.
Commissioner Chavez,
Approve.
Commissioner Fulmer,
Approved.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Approved.
and it's approved.
Great, thank you. We'll move to public comment regarding approval of the minutes. This is something that we've been asked to do by County Council. Does anyone here have comment regarding approval of the minutes? Does anyone online have a comment regarding the minutes? And I don't see any written comments for today. So I think we can move forward to the next item. Great. I begin every meeting by just letting everyone know the notice of meeting for today was issued on November 14th, 2024, not 2014. I knew I was going to get something wrong. At 3:38, you should have received an email. If you didn't receive an email, there's a new email subscription process. If you go to mva.lacounty.gov, the department has a new website. So to sign up for the department's email, if you would scroll down to the very bottom, in the footer, you'll see a section that says get the latest updates. And if you enter your email address, you'll and select subscribe, you'll be able to join the department's newsletter, which issues our notice of meetings. And I just want to thank the department for fixing the subscription issue. I checked last night, it works great. So with that, we'll move forward to the LA County voting results. I just wanted to share a couple things regarding the election. Obviously, earlier this month, we had an election. Measure A and Measure G, I think, are relevant here. Measure A passed, and with that, I've asked the department to share with us some of their thinking regarding resourcing with Measure A. I think we'll get that later today. And Measure G passed. Measure G may not be obvious, but it affects us because currently the way that our bylaws are written is that the chair and vice chair rotate depending on which supervisor is the chair. That will no longer be the case in 2028. So I wanted to bring it up. We could talk about it a little bit more with the bylaws. We may need to modify our bylaws if we want to get ahead of it, or we can just leave it as is, and it could be the commission's problem in 2028. But while we're in the process of refining the bylaws, I think we should get ahead of it now. Measure E is on here. That really didn't affect us at all, but I just put it on there as a general update. So the three measures that were on the ballot, all three passed. Two of them will potentially have an impact on this commission. The other update, we will have a change of command in January, as written per our current bylaws. The supervisorial district, which chairs the LA County Board of Supervisors, reflects who will chair the commission here. And I believe starting December 2nd, Supervisor Barger will chair the LA County Board of Supervisors, which means ST5 will chair the commission starting in January. So Commissioners Gutierrez, Chavez, I think it's up to you in terms of who wants to be chair or vice chair. I'll let you guys duke it out. I think it's you could arm wrestle, thumb wrestle, and just let Stephanie know whenever you're ready. So just briefly, do we want to change the bylaws to reflect the Measure G changes, or just leave it as is?
I believe that we can just wait a little bit longer because I
Okay.
feel like there's going to be other changes as well. And I think we might as well just do it all at one time.
Yeah, great. Any other thoughts? Okay, so we'll leave the succession planning as is. But I just wanted to touch on that. So we'll have a final copy of the bylaws for December, and then we'll vote on that. The only other item I wanted to address is the public comment form. Currently, we have two different mechanisms, and I think we hopefully can consolidate that into one. So I want to work with the secretary and Vice Chair Fulmer and Director Zenner to see if we can make it a little bit more streamlined for the public. So we have a form that's in the notice of meeting. And then obviously if you attend the meeting, there's a separate form. So just in terms of having one process, I think it would be ideal. So I'll work with the department on that. That's all I have for chair updates. We'll move forward to public comment regarding the chair updates. Does anyone in person have a comment regarding the chair report? Does anyone online have a comment regarding the chair report? And we have no written comments for today. So with that, we'll move forward to the next agenda item. We have a guest speaker today from LA County Child Support Services. Commissioner Gutierrez, you requested this. Do you want to say a few things before we get started?
Yeah, sure. So a while back before the pandemic, I had gotten a briefing on kind of the what Child Support Services was doing to work with veterans and helping them out in whatever situation they might run into. It's been quite some time since then, so that's really why I was asking for an update to see kind of what the status is for that.
So first of all, thank you for having us or having me. My name is Pete Salazar. I'm here representing LA County Child Support Department. Across the board, we've really made a huge effort in the last, I want to say, 10 plus years to have a better understanding of what parents paying child support or owe child support, what they're going through and the circumstances that they're in. So again, across the board, there's a program that the state offers that I'm going to explain that really can help folks that actually are in arrears, monies that they owe. But it depends on who the money's owed to. That's key. Just in brief, if there's any money owed to the parent, the state nor the county can negotiate those funds. The only individual that can negotiate those funds is a parent that the money is owed to. In terms of money that's owed to the state for welfare reimbursement, the state can negotiate that amount that's due. And essentially what they do is they look at a payment history on a case. If they see at least 6 consecutive months of the individual making an effort to pay something back, and I'm not talking substantial payments, it can be $20 a month, $25 a month. It just depends on that individual's circumstances. They can enter into an agreement, a repayment plan where at the end they'll waive 90% of a balance. So I've seen numerous individuals that have been approved for that program, and they've had in excess of $90,000 waived because they've been put on a payment plan to pay back, for example, $10,000 over the course of 3 or 4 or 5 years. Again, it just depends on the circumstances, but it all goes back to that individual that owes the money having the means to be able to pay it, right? But again, I'll touch a little bit on just the child support process as a whole, and more so what we do. But if anybody has any questions for me after this, you'll have my contact info. We can go really in depth. We can talk about child support, or I can all day, all day. It's pretty intense.
Okay. So you can just identify when you want to move to the next slide. It's all loaded up here. So whenever you're ready, and I think we have about 10 or 15 minutes for this agenda.
Perfect. Go ahead. You can change it.
And thanks for being here.
Thanks again. No problem. So essentially, these are a few ways, not a few ways, but this is what my department does. Starting from the top, we establish parentage if it hasn't already been established. We establish court orders for child support. We modify those court orders as well. Ultimately, we enforce those court orders, we collect money, and we distribute the funds that we collect accordingly. Next. So here are a few ways that a person can actually open a case. They can complete the application online, They can submit a request for an application via email. They can actually text a phone number to simply the word open, and it'll actually send them the application. And then you see the last couple of bullet points are different ways that they can also request an application. If some folks prefer just kind of your traditional fill it out, pen in hand, they can do that as well. Next. And you have to excuse me, my vision is really bad, and I thought I was going to be able to see that, and I'm not able to make it out.
Can you see that one better?
The angle. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay, perfect. Let's do that. The unfortunate part is that I got to take a vision test for my renewal of my license in the next month. That's not good. Okay, so here are just 10 general steps of the actual child support process. So we start with the individual either applying for the services, or the other way that we actually receive a referral is through the welfare department. And what that means is a parent or a guardian goes to apply for public assistance. And what we're concerned with is the cash aid. Some folks go in and ask for food stamps, Medi-Cal. We're not really concerned with that. But when they apply for cash aid, that's when we get a referral to open up a child support case against a parent that's not in the home. And even that has changed in terms of how the money is distributed, or the money is distributed for how the money is distributed once we collect it if a parent is aided. That recently changed, and I'll try to touch on that in a second. So in the event that we need to locate parents, we usually do it by US Postal. All we need is a verified home address or a place of employment. This step is essential in order for us to be able to serve the person that we're pursuing in service of our summons and complaint. Our summons and complaint is essentially legal paperwork that's letting the individual know that they're being sued for child support. So in that paperwork, it talks about two important things. It talks about money and it talks about paternity. The dollar amount that's in that paperwork is what we call a proposed judgment. Based on the information that we found via a social or an ITIN number, this is the amount that we are suggesting or proposing that you can afford to pay. That parent still has the right to object to that. They can say, hey, I don't know where you received or how you came up with $800. There's no way I can afford that. They can dispute that. When it goes to court, they'll look at all the financial records the person has to actually set an amount that's better fit for their current financial situation. In terms of the parentage, when we say is that they can dispute paternity if it hasn't already been established, most of the times when a child is born, parents have the option to sign a voluntary declaration of paternity in the hospital. When they sign that, they're pretty much acknowledging, I don't need a paternity test, this child is mine. The problem with that is they only have about a 60-day window. Actually, it's a 60-day window to dispute or to attempt to rescind that document. Once those 60 days have gone by, it's extremely difficult to have that overturned. So when I talk to young men, I always explain to them, hey, if you're ever in that situation and you have any doubt, don't sign it. Come through us. We'll do a paternity test. It's free. That way you don't get stuck paying child support, potentially for 18 years, even longer for a child that's biologically not even yours. And it's happened. We've seen it. I've seen it quite a few times. So once we establish paternity and we have an actual agreed on a dollar amount, it'll go to court. It'll be signed by a commissioner and actually becomes a court order. Once it's a court order, then we can legally start charging the individual child support. If we know where they're working by law, we have to send paperwork to the employer to deduct the money straight out of their paycheck. We don't have an option for that. I've been with my department maybe 22 years, 23 years. And when I first started, that was an option. And you can imagine how many parents weren't paying child support because they had the option to either pay on their own or go through the employer. Well, if they're paying on their own and money's a little short, the child support is not gonna come in. Um, so we establish the order, they start making payments, we enforce the court order. At any moment, at any time during the duration of a child support case, if the individual experiences a change of circumstance, let's say they remarry or they have another child with somebody else that they're supporting, or they lose employment, that's considered a financial hardship. That's a reason for them to go back to court to request that they modify a court order based on that change of circumstance. Um, the only problem is a lot of parents don't take the initiative to go back to court because it's a hassle sometimes. Or they don't know where to begin. They don't know what to start. They don't know who to talk to, how to initiate that process. That's why my department's made a huge effort, again, in the last 10 to 12 years to actually get out in the community, be open and willing to help people, to let them know, hey, you know, we're not just here to collect money. We want to make sure that we have what we're calling right-sized orders based on your current financial situation. Unfortunately, the court sometimes is faced with a situation where they may have a parent that's willingly not working or not seeking employment so that they don't have to pay child support. So when they have those types of situations, they're in a tough spot because they can't, you know, just say, okay, you're not working, we're going to set your order at $0. Essentially, they're still going to be charged, maybe not what they should be charged, or maybe a little bit too more. But the court is stuck in a situation where how do we know that this individual is being forthcoming, right? And a lot of times it's obvious when they may be in their work history, they may have earned over 100,000 at every place of employment that they've had, and now they're making $18 an hour. That sometimes may be a sign that something's not right. Okay, next. So managing arrears, the debt reduction program is something that I had mentioned a little while ago. This debt reduction program is specifically for parents that owe money for welfare reimbursement. How it stands now with the new laws, let me say how it was before. If a parent was receiving public assistance cash aid, they would be entitled to receive what we call a $100 disregard per child. So if we collected $400, the first $100 would go to that parent, and then they would be entitled to their cash aid, their cash assistance. How it works now is that they're going to be entitled to, starting in January, they're going to be entitled to the money that we collect and their child support. I'm sorry, the money we collect, the child support and the public assistance, the cash aid. So they're going to receive both sides of it. Even now, if a case has monies owed to the parent and monies owed to welfare for welfare arrears, any money that's collected that goes to the welfare arrears is actually going to be passed through to the parent. Again, this starts January 25. So it's going to be happening. We're not sure how it's going to play out in the long run, but it's going to be happening. But again, this program here for the parents that do owe money to the state, I've seen it work miracles. People that are in the hole, they've been paying for 20 plus years. And again, they have to have the means to be able to pay. They have to have employment or maybe somebody that can lend them the money. But from the cases that I've seen, they've had employment. And just off the top of my head, I know 3 people that are at Homeway Industries that this program saved them over $90,000 and they're done. But they had been dealing with it for quite some time. Next. And here are just a few ways that parents or individuals, guardians can connect with us. We have our customer contact center that's open Monday through Friday, 7 to 5. We have a live chat. Sometimes the wait when you call in can get pretty lengthy. The live chat is Monday through Friday. You go in, it has a little text box. You can type your questions. You're actually speaking to somebody on the other end. It's not an auto like a bot. They can walk in. They can make an appointment. We have a virtual appointments. Customer Connect is online. And anytime that I speak to an individual that has a case, I give them their case manager's phone numbers and their email address all the time. I tell them, call them, leave them a message, and email them. And they'll get back to you. The turnaround is supposed to be 2 days. I know we've gotten a lot better with it, our case managers, but you do have the ones that take a little bit longer depending on how busy they are. So we'll open it up Q&A a little fast, but if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Great, thank you. Right on time. Commissioners, do we have, I think we have one, any other two, three?
I have a
We have
question.
We have a lot of questions. Okay. Commissioner Zato, would you like to go first?
Yeah, just two quick questions. Thanks for being here. Is veteran disability compensation considered income?
It actually depends. I don't know. There's some benefits that we can collect from, and there's some benefits that we cannot collect from. So the actual specifics of depending on the type of benefits that they're receiving from the VA, then that'll determine if we can collect from it or not. I would have to double check. I was actually asking my manager as I was sitting there because I couldn't remember which ones we can actually take from and which ones we can't take from.
Yeah, and just one more question. If you can go back to their second slide, I think it was. Yeah, that second slide. Yeah. So that bottom corner, the services that are not offered, who are you able to tell me who actually covers those?
So
areas?
anytime that we actually get inquiries regarding like a divorce or custody visitation, not divorce, but custody visitation, I refer them to the family law facilitator. The family law facilitator, they deal with anything with family law. They help the folks identify what paperwork needs to be filed. And if they need help filling out the actual forms, they'll assist in doing that. Pre-COVID, you had to have an appointment to go in. They're usually located at the majority of our superior courthouses. It's a free legal service. I don't know if I have it with me, but I have a flyer in my car that has all the family law facilitators within the county. Before I leave today, I can make sure that you all get a copy if you want one.
And then for the other two, the visitation and restraining orders, who does that fall under?
The visitation custody is still the family law facilitator. The restraining orders, I would assume, would be anything to do with law enforcement. We wouldn't have anything to do with those.
Thanks.
No problem.
And when you get a chance, could you send the benefits to Stephanie regarding which can and which can't be?
I will. And what I'll do is I'll actually send the PDF file of her for the family law facilitators. I'll send it to to her via email so she can send it. I'll send it out to you guys via email.
Okay. Commissioner Chavez?
My question was pretty much aligned with Commissioner Chi's question, more along the lines of unemployability. So if a veteran is listed as unemployable, because they can get that 100% P&T with unemployability, would that still count as something that they would be able to take from?
Yeah, and I want to say that no, we can't, but don't take it for granted yet. Don't take it as a word. Let me verify, and then I'll get back and I'll let Stephanie know.
Okay.
I don't want to give you guys the wrong info.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Commissioner Crooks?
I did.
Commissioner Palmero?
So how does that affect, because I've heard two different stories when somebody's incarcerated, that either the child support payments requirements stop altogether, like they're not owed any, no interest is accrued, and there won't be any back pay for when they get out. And I've also heard a different theory, but can you just tell me how that works when somebody's
Sure. So whenever the laws when dealing with folks that are incarcerated are constantly changing, how they are now is that the individual has to request a modification of their child support while they're incarcerated. Okay. But they have to be incarcerated at least 90 days before they actually submit that request. So if a person's only going to be in, let's say, 120 days, by the time they submit the request for modification, it takes about 3 months or so to actually get a court date. So by the time that happens, there's a good probability that they're already going to be out. So at that point, they won't modify the order, because if I get out today, the child support will kick back in starting the first of the following month. So if I get out today, starting December 1st, that child support is going to kick back in. And that in itself depends on when the court order was established. Pretty much anything after, I want to say 2008, is going to kick right in. So that's why we say general rule 90 days. If you're going to be in longer, then go ahead and submit the request for modification. But I go to the federal prisons on a monthly basis. I see individuals that have been there 7, 8, 9 years. They've been charged the entire time that they're down. So because they either they didn't do it or they didn't know. So the courts won't go retroactive to modify an order. It'll go from the time that that request was made, moving forward. So I meet folks that have been out, they come out and they've been charged the entire time, and there's really nothing they can do. I actually tell them, file a motion, dispute it, go to court and fight it. What's the worst thing they can tell you? No. Chances are it's going to be no, but let them tell you no versus me telling you no, because I don't have the authority to make that decision. Only the courts do. But one more caveat to that. Now they look at why the person's incarcerated. So if the person's incarcerated, let's say you and I have a child support case together. I'm incarcerated for DV, domestic violence. And I'm incarcerated requesting modification, but they find out that I'm incarcerated because of the domestic violence issue that I had with you, whom I owe the money to. Chances are they're not going to modify that order. So, and I want to say it started with Orange County. They kind of set precedents with that, started looking at, why they're incarcerated, and that actually determining whether or not they're going to be modifying a court order. So they have to do it while they're incarcerated. That's the key. Because if they wait till they get out, it's more than likely it's going to stick. And then even if they modify the monthly obligation to $0, the interest still accrues. It's 0.833% a month on any unpaid principal. So I say 1%. But like I tell the folks that, if you owe $5,000, $6,000, it's not really significant. But when you get the balances that are, 40, 50,000 of unpaid principal, that's significant. Especially if you're not paying, because even though they modify your order, you're still accruing, $400+ a month just in interest.
Vice Chair Fulmer, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Director, for taking the time for this. I'd like to use a specific example for potentially some recommendation to an extent. To say that a veteran is receiving a garnishment from their disability, and there was a case of child support making an issuance of a required amount that needed to be paid. And in this process, there was an abandonment, let's say, of children. And this veteran who is paying child support now has full custody of the children. It has been made pretty clear that the legal process of this and the bureaucratic process is quite extensive. It could take over 8 months, let's say. Is there a way to expedite the recognition of child custody through child support services to prevent that garnishment when this individual may have full custody of their children? Is there a direct way to kind of get to that issuance, or are they going to be kind of stuck in this litigation process for 8, 9 months to a year?
No, actually there is a way for him or her to actually expedite that process. Off the top of my head, they would have to file an ex parte motion, which is like an emergency hearing, but it's all case by case, right? In the first slide, my email address was on there, my phone number was on there. I can give it to you. Okay, we go back to the first slide.
Thank you.
If you can have the person reach out to me, I can actually take a look at their case to see what's going on. And in any event, I can provide them with their caseworker's information and also let the caseworker know what's going on to bring this to the forefront, and that way to get it started. Because the last thing we want to do is that if it's something where the person shouldn't be or shouldn't have to pay any money back or shouldn't be charged, we don't want to collect money and then issue it out. Because once we issue it out to the parent, there's no way for us to get that money back.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Commissioner Noel?
Thank you so much. When it comes to determining, say, who are your dependents, if you will, the children, and you're a veteran and you're not the biological parents, the VA has some very definitive definitions as to what they considered a dependent of a veteran. Um, in the scenarios where a parent, perhaps maybe gets incarcerated and the courts decide to award custody or guardianship of the minors to a non-parent, how does the county child support services provide assistance specifically when the VA doesn't recognize those children as dependents or benefits like any other child that that you have basically responsibilities for, financial and otherwise? How would you provide in those scenarios assistance to the veteran and
So-
providing those services to the kids?
So first of all, we'd have to look at both as just completely separate issues. In terms of the child support, it goes back to when that court order was first established, right? That summons and complaint. With that summons and complaint, that's their opportunity to request a paternity test to establish parentage if it hasn't already been done so. But when I say it hasn't been done so, that goes back to the voluntary declaration, like for example, in the hospital, which is where it's most commonly done. If that was never done, the voluntary declaration was never signed, they never requested a paternity test when they received their summons and complaint from my department, that child support order is still going to go through by what we call default, right? If they didn't respond to the paperwork, they didn't request paternity test, they didn't dispute the amount of money we're asking them to pay, once they get served that paperwork, it's going to happen. It's going to go through. The way the courts see it is that by them not requesting a paternity test is by them acknowledging, or it's them acknowledging paternity, right? So even if a person went through the child support process, they were served paperwork, they ended up incarcerated, and whether they were charged before, during, or after, that money is still going to be owed. They're still assumed to be the parent of that child. And I've seen cases where a person is actually in arrears $200,000 for kids that are 24, 25 years old. And I always use this example because when he got served, he didn't request a paternity test. His name was not on the birth certificate. The kids weren't even his biological children, but he knew that from the beginning. Fast forward 25 years, now he owes $200,000 for two kids that aren't his, because the courts are telling him you should have disputed paternity 24 years ago. Right? So I mean, this is child support is a topic where we can go talk all day about it. It's really complex.
We are a little bit pressed for time, but Commissioner Gutierrez, you had one last follow-up?
Yeah, really quick. Thanks again, Pete, for the presentation. Turnaround time from claim to service to payment. Do you guys have an average time for that?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It varies. It all depends on, number one, how soon we can serve an individual. If we have a hard time locating a parent, or we can't mail our paperwork, our process server can't just leave it on the doorstep. They have to physically serve somebody. So that sometimes that in itself can take 4, 5, 6 months. But if everything goes smooth, we're able to serve them, you're looking at maybe 5 months.
Okay.
Maybe. But I mean, it varies. They can be 5 months, it can be 9 months, it can be a year, especially if the person's out of state.
Sure.
If the person's out of state, now you're looking at well over a year, probably.
Okay. And I do appreciate how much easier you guys have made it to open a case, because I think that's probably one of the things that makes it hard for people to actually file for child support. But the options that you guys have given seem pretty. There's a lot of different options.
And we and I know we're pressed for time, and we want to let the community know that we're also here to help people. Sometimes, a certain situation, it is what it is. There's nothing we can do. But with me, when I'm dealing with participants, if there's something that I can let them know of, I'm forthcoming with the information. I let them know, hey, have you tried this? Why don't you try doing this? Establish a positive working relationship with your caseworker. And just another law that's changing starting in January of 25 is we're no longer going to be suspending driver's license. And that was huge, because that was our primary way of getting a parent's attention. Like, hey, you have this outstanding debt. So we're going to take your license, now come and speak to us. But starting January 25, it's not going to happen no more. They're already in the process of releasing licenses that are currently suspended. So for the parents that owe, great. But for the parents that the money's owed to, it's like, what are you guys doing?
We'll have to cut it off there, but I appreciate your time. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming. I
Again,
think you're
thank you.
obviously a wealth of knowledge, and your email is there on the display. If commissioners have any other follow-up questions, I'm sure they'll reach out. And if you can please provide the VA benefit information
You got it. No
to
problem.
the secretary, that'd be great. But thank you so much for
Thanks
coming.
again.
And we'll move on to public comment regarding agenda item 6. Is there anyone in person that would like to provide a comment regarding the presentation we just heard? Is there anyone online that would like to make a public comment regarding the presentation we just heard? Okay, and we have no written comments today. We'll move forward to the next agenda item, which is general public comment. We have a few people who have registered in advance, so I'll call out some names. Is there a Noah Schrader in person, online? No? Okay. Patty Bascule. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing the last name. Patty Bascule, in person, online. Young Che, online. Okay. And then we have former Commissioner Ortiz.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll keep this short and sweet. First off, I want to say thank you to Chairman Allman for the article that just came out last week. Let VA be VA. After decades of decay, I agree with the VA. They aren't in the housing business. Stick to healthcare. The Pacific Branch National Veterans Park is the best idea I've heard in the 30 years I've been involved and active here. I say let another agency take over and see what they can do. This idea is great and needs to be discussed. I hope this is going to be on one of your future agendas, your upcoming agendas. If you don't think it's going to work, come to the table and let's talk about this. Let's throw out the ideas. But this is something new, and you know, I like I said, 30 years I've been watching the Greater LA, West LA VA facility, and it's sad. I think another agency needs to come in for this. It's already being done. The Presidio in San Francisco is doing this. So let's take a look at what's going on here. Now, also, my next item is whatever happened to recommendation number 1. I saw in your minutes, it got brought up last meeting, but can we get a follow-up on that? And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in person that would like to make a public comment? Is there anyone online that would like to make a public comment? Andrew String.
Hey, thanks, Anthony, and thanks to the commission. Wanted to share a couple updates and information that I'll also drop in the chat here. One, first off, just with anticipated inclement weather this weekend and next week, I wanted to reiterate our housing hotline for same-day access to temporary shelter for veterans who are unsheltered at the moment. That number is 310-268-3350. Would encourage everyone to take that number down and share it We have bed availability, shelter beds both at West LA and in the community. And we also have transportation resources for veterans who need a ride to get to the shelter. So please spread the word on this. We have bed availability for veterans who are looking to get off the streets and begin their track into permanent supportive housing. Also wanted to mention we have 2 additional buildings right now that are opening at the West LA campus over the next 2 months with 190 units between those 2 buildings. Right now we have 307 permanent supportive housing apartment buildings that are open, 5 buildings with 307 units on the campus, and another 2 buildings with 190 units that are set to open in December, January timeframe. We're going through the referral process right now. So veterans who are engaged with HUD-VASH, please work with your case manager to fill out a housing choice form. And these buildings are the address 701 MacArthur Avenue and 11400 Vandergrift Avenue. That will bring us up to 7 total housing buildings open on the campus and about 500 units. I'll share in the chat as well a video that shows some of the construction progress, as well as information on those units that are opening at West LA. Thanks again for the opportunity to comment, and please share the number on shelter access.
Great, thank you. Do we have anyone else online that would like to make a comment? No? Okay. And we have no written comments for today. So with that, we'll move forward to the next agenda item. So this is revisiting recommendation 8, which we discussed back in September. We had some modifications to that. I'm not sure if you all looked at your commissioner packet. You should see a red line version for what has changed from the previous draft. I guess in keeping with tradition, I'll just read it into the record real quick. Well, before doing that, I think we would need a motion in a second.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Since we already read the initial version into the record, should we do it again for the, we can move to the next slide, please. That way the public can see it. Should we reread it with the edits, or? I don't think we've ever brought a revision to the table before, so this is.
I believe most recommendations we should just read through. I know it's the interest of time, although probably the benefit of this particular recording and this particular session, it might be beneficial for us to discuss and go through its entirety.
Okay, I'll reread it. Los Angeles County Veterans Advisory Commission recommendation number 8. Whereas Chapter 3.60 of the County of Los Angeles Code of Ordinances provides authority for the establishment of a Veterans Advisory Commission. Whereas Chapter 3.60.020 members of the code establishes the number of board members and eligibility for appointment to the commission. Quote, the commission shall consist of 10 members appointed by the board. Persons appointed shall have been veterans, end quote. Whereas 38 USC section 101 definitions states, quote, the term veteran means a person who served in the active military, naval, air, or space service and who was discharged or released therefrom under conditions other than dishonorable, end quote. Whereas the current governing language for commission eligibility may not permit the appointment of currently serving active duty reserve and National Guard members of the U.S. Armed Forces as they have yet to be discharged or released from military service. Whereas the Los Angeles County Department of Military and Veteran Affairs has a dual mission to serve both current and past members of the U.S. Armed Forces who reside in the County of Los Angeles. And whereas both the Commission and Department may benefit from a broader range of voices to assist the county in better serving members of the military veteran community and their families. Therefore, be it resolved on November 20th, 2024, Los Angeles County Veterans Advisory Commission recommends that the Board of Supervisors modify Chapter 3.60.020 members to the following. The commission shall consist of 2 members per supervisory district. Persons appointed shall either be active duty, reserve, National Guard service members, or veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces. At least 50% of the members shall be veterans with an honorable discharge.
So why does it specify at least 50% of the members shall be veterans with honorable discharge?
That's a great question. So active duty, reserve, and National Guard members have not been discharged.
So that has nothing to do with somebody who wants to be a commissioner and they have an other than honorable or a dishonorable.
I'm glad you brought that up. So currently as written, it just says the commission shall consist of 10 members appointed by the board. Persons appointed shall have been veterans. There's no specification, honorable, general, or anything like that. So this is saying for eligibility purposes, at least 50% of the board has to be veterans with an honorable discharge. So it's actually, in my opinion, increasing the stringency with who can be eligible to become a commissioner.
To add to that as well, Rocio, that would imply that even if that was adhered to, 50% of that'd be 5 of the 10 commissioners that are veterans would require an honorable discharge, which would, I guess, by definition, I guess anybody other than honorable would still befit that as a qualification for being on the board that the supervisors did deem as a commissioner.
The intent here, and we can strike it all together, was to say if we're going to have the inclusion of active duty, reserve, and National Guard service members, that the body be at least half veterans.
Yeah, my recommendation would be to strike the last part with the honorable discharge. One, I think it's up to the supervisors to decide who they want on this board, as well as unfortunate history of there's a lot of folks out there that may have an unfavorable discharge that's due to no fault of their own. I think just in general that the supervisors are going to decide who they want, and I don't see the need to make it an honorable discharge.
Are you saying strike the entire sentence, or
No, just the
strike
last part, just the with honorable
So
discharge.
I believe the motion would probably be something along the lines of a motion to approve or a motion to submit the recommendation as is with the change of character of discharge at the last sentence.
So with amendments.
Yeah, with the amendment of striking the character of discharge at the
Right, I think we're still
last sentence.
still discussing it at this point. Commissioner Crooks?
I'm just, I actually agree with him. It should really be strike. And the only reason I'm thinking of that is you have a number of people out there that are veterans with OTH and that LBGQ, but don't ask, don't tell. They were discharged. They have less than honorable, but they may not have gotten the opportunity to change that over to either an honorable or general or whatever. And basically you're saying that, and it's no fault of their own, just like he said, that they did not get an honorable.
Well, it doesn't prohibit them from participating on the commission.
If you put,
It just says at least 50% of the members.
yeah.
I'm okay to strike it.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, I'm not fighting for it, but that's not what it says.
No, but just
Right.
kinda
So-
makes it smaller.
We can modify, or Commissioner Gutierrez?
But I think I agree with you. I think the odds of it not being 50% would probably be, I think those are not very high odds of that happening, but we can strike it. But didn't we discuss the commission where it says persons appointed shall have been veterans? I thought we talked about shall be veterans.
Correct. So the language is changed at so the very first, the second whereas clause is the current writing.
Okay, so
And
we're
we're
not gonna have-
recommending it be modified.
Okay, so we won't have that part in the quotes up top.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So it'll just say persons appointed shall, well, the very last sentence, if you look at the very last sentence.
Okay.
So I think where we're headed is everything but with an honorable discharge.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Chavez, did you have?
What the US code is stating, that they're allowing anyone discharged with anything other than dishonorable.
Okay.
So again, with Commissioner Crooks, I agree with that. Like, a lot of people had to get out due to various circumstances beyond their control. And I just feel that it needs to get striked.
Okay. So Vice Chair,
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, that totally makes sense. The striking of, I completely agree. And just so we are all aware, the reason recommendation 8 was brought up as Chair Alman brought up was that this provided a lot of limiting ability for our commission board when it only said veterans. When you think of the reservists that are still in and have a term to complete and aren't considered veterans. So yeah, I'm really grateful that recommendation's up. And if we struck the character discharge, I think that allows a very inclusive pool of the voices of Los Angeles and the veteran community. So yeah, I would say everything's great as it is, and recommend probably to strike the character of discharge.
okay, so we'll need a motion to approve with the amendment striking the
So
character of discharge.
I'd like to make an official motion to approve recommendation 8 with the amendment of striking the character of discharge
I
requirement.
second that motion.
Commissioner Noyola, second. Okay, great. Stephanie, can we please get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Crooks,
Approve the motion?
Commissioner Palmero,
Approve the motion with changes.
Commissioner Zato,
Approve.
Chair Alman,
Approve as amended.
Commissioner Noyola,
Approved as amended.
Commissioner Chavez,
Approve.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Approve.
recommendation approved.
Okay, so I'll make that modification and we'll send it out through DocuSign and we'll get it shipped out. With that, do we have any public comments regarding anyone in person have a public comment regarding the recommendation? Anyone online? And we have no written comments today. Okay, with that, we'll move forward to the department report. Thank you, Director, for your patience. We will, whenever you're ready. I just wanted to preface this by saying I asked the department for an update on Measure A when I received an email campaign that Measure A was officially or had officially passed. And so I thought, well, there's going to be a lot more resources into the county, and as a result of that, does the department have a strategy to obtain those resources? So, Director.
Yeah, thank you. And real quick, thank you to Pete for being here. I'm currently working with Director Hardy over at Child Support Services on an MOU between our two departments. So we're looking to increase the level of collaboration between our departments. So thank you. Next slide, please. Or if we could pull up. There we go. That was quick. Thank you. Next slide. So situation, the PIT count, we have over 2,900 veterans experiencing homelessness on the HMIS by name list. We know close to 1,400 veterans by name that are on the by name list. There's a lot of work being done to clean up that data and get a handle on it so that we can know the inflow and the outflow from that list and target strategies specific to addressing reasons why veterans fall into homelessness to begin with. The Homeless Services Division was established earlier this year as a result of a recommendation by this commission and a motion by the Board of Supervisors with a budget approval of 1.9 million from the Chief Executive Office. Couple things. We have really great coordination. I think I've talked about one team here at the commission several times. We've really built in partnership with the VA and the community, the one team, which has really cut through a lot of the silos that we've experienced as a community, trying to get veterans off the street. That's been going great. As a result, we've seen a deduplication of services. We've also seen an increase of permanent housing placements, 38% last year. We saw the PIT count go down close to 23%, 22.9 last year. And it's really just a healthy collaborative culture. It's nice to be on a team where, if something's not going right, if MVA isn't holding up our end of the deal, people feel secure enough to bring it up to our attention and vice versa. We bring up barriers and issues and we resolve them as a team. So that's what we have built over the last year and a half through partnerships. Next slide. So what target are we shooting at? You guys have probably heard a lot about functional zero. We need to hit functional zero. You probably heard we need to end veteran homelessness. So the next two slides are really to kind of provide a little bit of education between these two targets. Functional zero is a term coined and developed by Community Solutions, and it's used as part of their Built for Zero program. Nare and I were able to attend a working summit that Community Solutions put on with Built for Zero partners across the country last week, where we did a lot of learning. So their benchmarks include homelessness becoming a rare and brief, less actively homeless veterans than the 6-month average compared to the housing placement rate. Sorry, it's a little bit confusing on the wording. So that basically means the last 6 months, whatever the average of placement is, there's less veterans on the by name list than that average of those 6 months. Cities and counties are operating off of a full accounting of homelessness at all times. So that would mean that we know every veteran by name that is homeless on the streets at all times. The community is working towards equitable systems, starting with a focus on race and ethnicity. And the last benchmark is all of these achievements are sustained over time, even as local conditions change. So not just getting there, but being able to maintain it consistently. The next slide gets into the effective end of veteran homelessness. That's a term that's developed and a set of benchmarks that's developed by the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness and used by the VA. And the VA did have input into the development of these benchmarks. These benchmarks include the community has identified all veterans experiencing homelessness, similar to the benchmark for functional zero. The community provides shelter immediately to any veteran experiencing unsheltered homelessness who wants it. So you can see the VA's strategic work being done by creating that hotline and providing transportation to shelter that is working towards that particular benchmark. The community provides service intensive transitional housing only in limited circumstances or instances. That is one of the housing models, the 5 housing models under grant per diem. So basically a lot of the shelter or interim housing situations, they need to be geared completely towards getting into housing and not being stuck in treatment for 6, 12, 24 months. The community has a capacity to assist veterans to swiftly move into permanent housing. I have not gotten a response as far as like what that looks like in amount of time, but that's the wording in the actual benchmark. And then the last one, community has resources, plans, partnerships, and systems capacity in place should any veteran become homeless or be at risk of homelessness in the future. And that's really kind of what we're building with One Team, is to build that capacity, that partnership, that collaboration, so that if we have a veteran fall into homelessness, we're able to quickly rehouse them. Next slide. And so what we're working on as a department is we're working on aligning with our VA and federal partners and really chasing the effective end to veteran homelessness. Unit availability, the department did an assessment of what units are available. So currently there's 462 project-based VASH units available between LACDA and HACLA throughout the county. Over the next 3 years, these units are coming online. LACDA has an additional 186 coming online. HACLA has an additional 157. And then on the West LA VA campus, they will have an additional 717 units. So you add all 4 of those numbers together, we have 1,522 units or online or coming online over the next 3 years. We need additional unit acquisition in communities across LA County. We know that not every veteran wants to live on the West LA campus. They want to live close to their community colleges, their families, in East Los Angeles, in San Gabriel Valley, San Fernando Valley. So we need to do more unit acquisition across the county. The plan that the department has that we're putting forward would include 600 additional units coming on through a program called RPSS, which offers a lot of lucrative incentives to landlords that want to rent to specific populations. We did pilot a 38 unit facility out in Burbank, and it went very successful. We were able to lease up the majority of the units within 30 days, and it's in a very nice part of Burbank. That's another part of this unit acquisition through RPSS. We believe that it will lead to landlords in areas that veterans are more desirable for veterans to live in will become available through this. And then lastly, we'll continue to explore additional master leasing opportunities through LAHSA and CEO Homeless Initiative. Next slide. The solution. So really, one of the major problems that existed here in LA was a lack of referrals to the housing authorities from the VA. There was some legislation that came out a couple of years ago that authorized public housing authorities to apply for what's called a designated service provider status to the Secretary of the VA. This would allow housing authorities to refer to themselves, which would make sure that they were able to get as many referrals as they needed to fill all the vouchers. We're currently working with LACDA to apply for DSP status. And if DSP isn't the right avenue, we're told by the VA we can explore what's called a CCM, close collaborative case management MOU directly with the VA as a Department of Military Veteran Affairs. Another part of the solution is to bring on technical assistance to assist the One Team on data collection, case conferencing, and strategy. Really getting to that point, going back again to the definition of effective end of veteran homelessness, we need to be able to identify every veteran by name on our by name list and in our case conferences. And so that technical assistance would help us continue to build out the HMIS system and really help us refine our case conferencing, which there's a lot of room for improvement. We're looking to come back in person and provide that case conferencing in person. We think that's going to help the case conferencing piece, but also just refining the way we prepare for the case conference and use the case conference time as a community. 200 units of RPSS a year over 3 years. A surge of housing navigation. So right now, the VA has a track of 200 veterans who have a voucher in hand in their HUD-VASH program. And there's close to 500 veterans that will be referred, hopefully soon, to the housing authorities to get vouchered. And really getting those veterans off the by name list and getting them through, getting document ready, getting their voucher to finding appropriate housing, that's really the big need. And so a surge of housing navigators would allow us to be able to get those veterans off the by name list, get them through that process, get them housed, and then hand them off to HUD-VASH case management or SSVF post getting them housed. Also fund what is needed to get us moving down the path, but we'll continue to advocate to recuperate allowable costs from the VA and the state if there's any funding opportunities along the way, so that the budget ask from the department is not just, without trying to recoup some of those costs if funding becomes available through VA or the state. And then the last piece, PHAs need to standardize their categorization of reasons for discharge. So housing authorities have to report the same data to HUD. However, how they each track the discharges from the HUD-VASH program is different. And in order to really work with all the housing authorities that administer HUD-VASH program, we need to have them tracking the exits in a standardized way so we can build out individual strategies to address each negative reason for discharges from the program. Next slide. The DSP process. So what that would look like is we would have the housing authorities on each SPA case conference working group, as well as our housing navigators. We would enroll them as the housing authorities refer directly to the housing navigator program under MVA. We would co-enroll with HUD-VASH. HUD-VASH in the VA would provide any healthcare needs to the veteran as we provide the housing navigation. The housing navigation would work on the document readiness, voucher issuance, and identify housing. And when the veteran goes to sign the lease, that's where the VA HUD-VASH case management would begin. Our housing navigator and the veteran would meet the veteran's HUD-VASH case manager from the VA there and begin the handover. The DSP housing navigation is limited to 6 months per legislation. However, if it goes past 6 months, we can request a waiver to that. But our goal would be to get veterans housed in under 6 months. Next slide. So outcomes, we would aim to house 1,000 veterans a year through well-coordinated lease-up events. So these are lease-up events where we've requested assistance from the mayor. We'll request assistance through any contacts in the county to have DMV on site, to have Social Security on site, to have the housing authorities there, to have the VA there, and our housing navigators would bring our veterans to those lease-up events that we host across the county to get everything done in one spot as much as possible. Each year, we'd put an additional $12 to $15 million of federal subsidies from vouchers into housing veterans. So as we're housing these veterans, our unutilized vouchers would be utilized. And that would lead to drawing in an additional $12 to $15 million of federal subsidy. Demonstrate that if properly resourced, eliminating homelessness is possible for all. This is the first time in my career I've seen everything line up to where ending veteran homelessness is possible. Create a well-developed by name list and data tracking so that we know the inflow and outflow as previously discussed. Establish strategies with one team to address prevention simultaneously as we're housing veterans. So as we're getting more of a handle on the data, looking at establishing strategies with the one team to prevent veterans from falling into homelessness to begin with. Next slide. Goal timeline, July 2025. We would be able to hire up using emergency authority and enter into contracts with CBOs for surge housing navigation teams. Our goal would be by July 2027, in partnership with the VA and LAHSA, submit an application to usage for an effective end of veteran homelessness designation and begin work with usage technical assistance to get there. And then by July 2028, receive effective end to homeless designation from usage and continue all the gains that we made over the last 3 years moving forward so that any veteran that falls into homelessness, we have a clear track to get them rapidly rehoused. Next slide. Leverage funding. So if our budget ask is approved, that's a breakdown. Total, it would be 8.2 million. The majority of that is one-time funding, as I'll get into in later slides. And then you can see on the left in the red, VA special purpose funding, both through the SSVF program and everything outside the GPD program. That is how much money that is allocated from GLA to veteran programs such as HUD-VASH, such as HCHV, and other programs that are represented on the One Team calls. NVA was awarded $493,000 from VA to do project-based matching, and then $300,000 for legal services for veterans experiencing homelessness. Funding the 3-year surge would allow county the ability to further influence and drive the process in partnership with the VA. I think that's an important bullet to take a look at. 8.2 million can really drive and influence $175 million to ending veteran homelessness. And also just remind, currently with the 2,600 unused tenant-based vouchers, we're leaving $45 million of federal funding through HUD on the table every year. So we would be moving towards drawing down that additional federal funding. Next slide. Measure A, this is our current funding level. Obviously, we were approved when it was Measure H. We changed the language as the funding stream will change to A as a result of the taxpayers voting to approve that measure. Next slide. This is the ask. So you can see our current funding is 1.9. We're asking for an additional 1.05 million in ongoing that would provide staffing to build out the infrastructure and the case conferencing and the work we're doing as part of One Team. Right now, we have one staff covering 2 spas. That would allow for staff to cover one staff to cover each spa to handle logistics such as finding locations to house the case conferencing, to provide administrative support on the case conferencing calls in partnership with the VA CES leads. And then the 5.25 million, that's one time per year over the next 3 years to bring on the surge field-based support across the county, purchase the vehicles needed to get veterans to and from document readiness, surge related events, lease up events, things like that. And unit acquisition. Some of that money would go towards different acquisition strategies to bring more units on, as well as a CES technical assistance from the county side. The contracted housing navigation team, that would be 5 in each SD, so for a total of 25. They would each have a caseload of up to 20, so that's 500 veterans that they'd be actively working to house within every 6 months. So that's how we came up with the 1,000 veterans per year getting housed. Next slide. Why? Why are we tackling this? Why is it important to the department? We need to get our veterans a home. We've been working at this for a long time. I went through the HUD-VASH program myself shortly after getting out of the military. I've met a lot of veterans who have spent some time on the streets. It's not a place for anybody, especially not those that signed up and served in our military. So that's number one. Secondly, help show what is possible with local government, creating best practices for other big municipalities across the country of how they can get involved and make it happen. Stop giving back 45 million in federal subsidies to HUD by utilizing vouchers. That also allow us to refocus on other populations as a county. We plan on that one-time funding because we will end veteran homelessness in 3 years with that one-time funding. So that funding would not be required past 2028. Build the infrastructure that can keep veterans housed and constantly addressing inflow and outflow issues in real time. It'll also allow MVA to put more focus on other board directed priorities such as justice involved veterans, suicide, and women veteran needs. And lastly, veterans pay sales tax in LA County. We can't leave the most vulnerable on our streets with Measure A just passing. I think that's an important piece and why our department's so passionate about submitting this budget request and staying in the fight to end veteran homelessness. Next slide, I think, is the last slide. That's it for the presentation.
Thank you, Director. I have a few questions, comments, but does anyone want to go first? No questions?
Awesome.
That's a good one.
Not a question, but
That's a good comment. Can we go back 2 slides to the funding pie? Okay. So the current funding, that 1.9 million, I believe that's in reference to the Measure H funds that were provided this year.
Correct.
Okay, and that was February, right?
Yeah, the budget passed February 7th, and then funds were allocated or were available starting July 1st.
Okay. And the reason why I bring it up is because Measure H has been around for a while, and the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs did not receive Measure H funding until February of 2024. So I would venture to say that it was probably the last county department to receive Measure H funds. It's not to say that veterans were not served. Veterans were served with Measure H dollars, but through different agencies. And one of the reasons why I wanted to get this briefing, given the fact that Measure A passed, and during the campaign for Measure A lot of it was sold on serving veterans. I don't know if everyone here obviously lives in LA County. I'm sure you received 3 or 4 or 5 different flyers regarding Measure A, and one of them was very notable. It, had a veteran on it, and so I think that this department should be the first department to receive Measure A funding, and we just heard the director's plan of attack. However, it's currently not resourced. So I think at the next meeting, we should adopt a recommendation supporting this strategy to go forward to the Board of Supervisors, so that the Board of Supervisors hears from us, the principal advisors, that we support this plan moving forward. Again, that's my opinion. I'm welcome to hear other thoughts, but I think this would be a worthy recommendation.
I agree. Only because normally everybody wants money and everybody asks for money and everybody's like, oh, we're going to do these great things. But this plan was very thought out. It's very detailed. And I think it's workable. Like, none of this is realistic. We're not like, okay, we're going to wait for, the unicorns to come in and fly away with people. These are all like valid, realistic, tangible, and I think acquirable goals. So I do agree with you in that respect.
Commissioner Cook?
Do we have to wait the next meeting? Or does it have to be actually put on the agenda? Or can we approve it as a matter of his report?
I think it should be presented.
Vice Chair Fulmer, I think, are you?
It should be presented as a recommendation, correct?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, you could write one right now on a napkin and we can pass it. But I know people got to get on the road in 7 minutes. So I'm happy to draft something up for discussion at the next meeting. Do any other commissioners have?
I am. I'm in support of that recommendation for sure, especially because we have the metrics and statistics to back up that at the time Measure H, now Measure A, has been used effectively within the veteran population of Los Angeles County. Our metrics do show a successful rate of return for Measure H. Regardless of if it came in late, we're able to use this recommendation to explain why it shouldn't. So I completely agree. And I definitely want to thank Director Zenner for emphasizing that the veterans in Los Angeles County have paid double dues. They're taxpayers and they're veterans. So it's a really important statement to make there.
Thank you, Vice. Any other commissioners? Okay. Director, thank you for the briefing, and I'm sure we'll have something to discuss at the next meeting. Moving to the next, or not the next item, but public comment regarding this item. Is there anyone in person that would like to make a comment? Okay, Is there anyone online that would like to make a comment regarding the director's report? We have one comment.
Hey, not sure if I can do 2 comments in a meeting, but just wanted to thank Director Zenner and reiterate the success of the One Team. I dropped an article in the chat here. This is working, and it's through partnership with LA County Military Veterans Affairs and other service providers that is leading to the success. So I'm an employee of the VA Greater Los Angeles healthcare system, and just want to thank Director Zenner for his advocacy.
Thank you, Mr. Strain. Is there anyone online? Anyone else? Okay, and we have no written comments today. So with that, we'll move to the next agenda item. Here's what we have on deck. Vice Chair Fulmer, I know you've been wanting to get an OTH briefing for some time. And then we are still pending an update from LA County Department of Public Health regarding the landfill issue at VA West Los Angeles, and to see, if there's been a resolution there, what that looks like moving forward. And at the last meeting, we also talked about potentially getting a briefing from CalVet on the license plate program. I think we should keep December open. Personally, I think we have some end of year business. So maybe these are things that carry over into the new year, although I'll leave that to the discretion of ST5. It's their time to set the agenda, so they can carry it over if they want. But are there any other items that people would like to suggest going into next year? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the public comment regarding agenda item 10. Is there anyone in person that would like to make a comment? Is there anyone online? And we have no written comments. Okay. Now we will move forward to the next agenda item. Commissioner announcements. Commissioner Crooks.
Too long. Don't get old. Director Zenner, could you join me in the podium over here?
Uh-oh.
Hope we have something official happening.
It is my honor. I'm putting on a different hat now. It's my honor as the chairman of the CalVet board to present you with a proclamation from the governor of the state of California. The governor, in case you don't know, the governor puts out proclamations for Memorial Day and for Veterans Day. And since we don't have a lot of time, I usually am supposed to read it, but I'm just going to say, basically, he says, on Veterans Day, we pay tribute to those who selflessly served in our nation's military to defend our cherished freedoms and way of life. Many put their lives on the line, leaving behind their families and communities. He goes forth to talk about Veterans Day. And at the same time, many suffer from the physical and emotional scars of war and service. California is committed to supporting our veterans. In March, the state passed Proposition 1, which earmarks $1 billion in funding to build housing for veterans with behavioral health needs. We're also implementing the California Veterans Health Initiative to support veterans' mental health and suicide prevention efforts. Today and every day, let us honor the commitment and personal sacrifices that our veterans have made to defend our nations. While we can never fully repay them for their service, California is dedicated to ensuring that they are supported, connected, and respected in our state. And it's signed with the Great Seal of California by Governor Newsom and attested by Shirley N. Weber. Sir, it is my honor. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's a very good job. We'll move forward to Commissioner Palmero. Any announcements?
Nothing to announce.
Commissioner Zato.
Nothing for me.
Nothing for me. Vice Chair, do you have anything?
Just every Monday, West LAVA, it's called the Bunker Social from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Food bank drop-offs, free food, pet food drop-offs, and live entertainment for the vets. This is our 30th week, and I'll keep reminding everybody Mondays is the day to go to West LAVA. So hope to see you guys there.
Commissioner Noyola,
None for me.
Commissioner Chavez,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Just one thing. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving at Patriotic Hall. So there is going to be, not only are they serving dinner from 2 p.m. to 5:30, but there's also going to be a resource portion to that. So at between 12 and 2:30 p.m. So come on out and see what resources are available to you here at Patriotic Hall. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll move forward to public comment regarding the commissioner announcements. Is there anyone in person that would like to make a comment? Is there anyone online that would like to make a comment? And we have no written comment. Oh, I'm sorry,
I just have one update.
Director.
Yeah, just one additional update. So Commissioner Crooks mentioned Prop 1. Our department proactively reached out to the Department of Mental Health because every entity that applies for that funding needs to get a letter of support and go through the Department of Mental Health. Department of Mental Health and MVA are going to collaborate on anybody that's submitting applications for Prop 1 funding out of the veteran bucket. We reached out to California Department of Veteran Affairs, and they are going to come down and assist us and lead a provider information session to all interested parties that want to apply for that funding to build housing for our veterans. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments? Okay. And now we'll move forward to Commissioner Zeta's favorite agenda item. We are adjourned. Thank you. One more.